All right, so next is some Linux basics, NovNov3. Welcome back. I don't know how to do introductions. If you were wondering by the third video, I'd figure it out. Bad news. So today we are going to dive into what I like to consider 85% accurate Linux command line basics, or 85% Linux basics. I have the notes pane on the left-hand portion of my screen with all the commands that we're going to be running through today because I didn't want to speed through any of them. But these are a lot of commands that can help you get started or push for proficiency in Linux command line, but they won't necessarily make you a master on their own. I like to consider Linux command line a lot like Spanish classes. I don't know if anybody's ever taken a like high school or community college Spanish class before, but watching videos like this on the internet can teach you things like ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? And things like that, just like very basic repeating phrases. To actually get the proficiency, you have to take these commands, change how they're being used, and apply your own knowledge to the real world. And to tangent back to the 85% accurate, that is a joke that I like to make frequently because I am the type of person that will burn myself out if I try and give 100% of my effort to something constantly. But also, the joke is that that's good enough for most exams. And to tangent or carry on with that thought, don't study just to pass an exam. That is flawed logic. I am proof of that. 7 or 8 years ago, I took my Security Plus to get a job in the field. I crammed for a week in a boot camp and then basically just highlighted and reread portions. And I passed, got the job, and then promptly forgot everything that I learned and spent the next 5-ish years relearning how it actually applies to the world. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about our terminal. I am remoted in once again to the Jeff K account on NovNov1, which is that same virtual machine in the cloud, the droplet in the digital ocean that I have been using. And one of the most important things to understand about Linux systems is that your identity and position inside of that system is taken into account anytime you run a command. So how do we know what that is, right? So in some terminals, in some command line instances, you'll get this right here, which I like to call my shell, right? Because it's saying I am Jeff K, my user account, on NovNov1, my computer account, at that user's home directory. That tilde or twiddle, yes, that is another term for that. Twiddle, if I had to know that, so do you. But that tilde or twiddle represents the user's home directory. It's a shortcut. So in this case, that tilde represents Jeff K's home directory in the Linux file system of NovNov1. Sometimes you won't be so nice. Sometimes you'll get just a dot or an octothorpe, hashtag, pound sign, whatever you want to call it, a dot or a pound sign or a dollar sign, or just a greater than symbol to show that you have a connection. So if you don't have the nice representation of your shell right here, how can you find it? Well, those are those first few starting out commands on the left. Who am I in most operating systems will tell you your username, uname, space hyphen n. In most Linux systems will tell you your computer name, and then pwd or present working directory will show you your current location. And in this case, it does break out that twiddle. Sorry, I can't stop saying that. It's just so annoying to me. Into /home/Jeff K, because this is the absolute path to the directory that I'm in, starting at the /, which is the representation of the root directory of the computer, and then going into the directory called home that contains the home directories of all our users. So that is where Jeff K's home directory is in. You can kind of think about the home directory as like an apartment building, and then if you have a bunch of standard or regular users, they will all get a home directory for themselves inside the home directory, like an apartment inside of an apartment building. Those are a lot of the basics. Now, as a bit of refresh on some commands you may or may not know of. If you're ever unsure of how to use a command or how to use it better, like I said, push for that proficiency. Man or the manual command will open that up, and it works for 99.99% of commands in the OS of Linux. So if I do man of uname, it'll say uname print system information. And then it gives me all of the options. I could just print all of it with either a -a or a hyphen all in a lot of Linux systems. Single hyphen is for single letter. Double hyphen is for full word. Anyway, we can get the kernel name, node name, or the host name, or what I call the computer name. We can get versioning, processor information. We can get a ton in here, right? And another thing that's weird is that in 90% of Linux systems, you can use Control C to cancel out of the thing you're connected to, but that won't work in man. If you see at the bottom, though, it does just say press Q to quit. So I can Q to quit, clear my screen, and that is the man command. As a result, history is going to show you the last few commands you typed in. I'm going to pipe that into tail to add another command, which just shows the last few lines. So if I do history space pipe space tail space -n space 5 for the number of lines to be 5. It does 10 by default, but in this case, that would just show me going back to that uname -n. Right? If I did just the full tail, you'll see I was looking at my last bad again before starting this video. Just curious how many. If you guys were at all curious, it was a lot. This is why we disabled that root, or we didn't permit root login in the last video, because now I'm sitting at an inability to type in my own password. Now I'm sitting at 4,000 last bad logins to the root account. So that is a good reason to not permit root SSH. So I'm going to clear my screen again to give us some working room. That is the basics, or the starting out in our Linux basics. Up next are a couple of, excuse me, needs water. This is where a fancier video would edit it out. Yeah, it's NovNov. What can you expect? So we got PS aux is going to be our first one. So PS is going to be a command all on its own, and then AUX is going to modify the PS command to specifically show running processes by user, including background processes. If you wanted to learn more about how it does that, I would recommend checking out the man command on that. But in this case, I can see I got a lot going on with my root account. Going down here, I then have some RPC, got some cronny, and then down here I've got Jeff K doing some stuff. Specifically, SSH and bash. If you ever wanted to check and see if somebody had SSH open, you could just PS aux space pipe space grep SSH. And we kind of jump down to the weird data stuff already, but we'll come back to it. In this case, it's just showing the things that I've been doing. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen again. Again, PS aux is a way to show running processes by user, including background processes. If there was one in there that I didn't like or I didn't want to keep going, let's see if this kills the video. So let's go ahead and find something in here. I'm going to scroll up to the top, and we're going to see user, process ID, and how much it's using. So what I need to do the next command of kill is I need the process ID. Kill destroys or just stops a process on the terminal. And if I go ahead and scroll down, see if I can find something worth killing that isn't going to affect much. All of these are going to do things that I don't want to break right now. Yeah, worst thing that can happen is we just got to restart it. So let's go ahead and do 1452. This would be a great time to have like a script or notes so that I don't break my system. But if I try and kill it, it'll say operation not permitted. If I sudo try and kill it, doesn't give me a command. There's a lot of times when people in Linux will say if it doesn't work, just sudo it, right? Because that will make it work. But I never actually looked into what that did. If you guys are interested, you can look it up. It didn't break anything immediately. Maybe it did on the back end. But that could be a good way to push for proficiency of the system and figure out what that was, that polkit D. I won't spoil it for you, but that is kill. If I wanted to instead let it run but force it to use less system resources, I could use nice or renice. For this one, I'm going to pull up the manual page. And all it does is without killing the process, it changes how nice it is. So in Linux systems, nice refers to how much of the resources it cuts out for itself or what priority it has. So renice would be a way to, instead of killing and then restarting a process, bump it down the priority order. If it's using too much of your system resources, but you need it to be running, just kind of kick it down the ladder a few rungs. Next up, we have htop. Does not stand for Hot Topic, though I did figure out their shirts are ridiculously expensive now. And this is one that doesn't exist in all Linux systems, but it is one that I like using. Y'all might be more familiar with just regular, excuse me, top or top of processes. It takes over your command line. It shows you what is running, how much of your CPU and memory it is taking up. And we could leave that running, or we could kill it with Control C. So I don't have htop, but we can install it, right? Because we are the masters of our own operating system in Linux. We can add whatever we want. So I'll just do sudo dnf install htop. Again, dnf is that dandified yum. It is the fancier package manager used by CentOS and Rocky Linux and a few others. But I'll go ahead and see if I could just pull that down. Oh, we don't have htop. Does CentOS and DigitalOcean not have htop? This is going to be something I have to look up, or else I'm going to go insane. Oh, it's in the EPL. Okay, so if you have never used CentOS or anything like that, what DNF does, and this is a tangent, but it's a good one. What DNF does is it is essentially like your app store, but it's just the basics, right? It's what they expect you to need. It's a lot of publicly available things that have been sourced and contained inside of the dandified yum package manager. Dandified yum. I can't not do that. Um, and so it's like trusting someone to do it for you so that you don't have to find a link to download, to install, to run. You can just grab it from DNF. But there's some stuff that they don't leave inside just the general dandified yum. And so then there is the EPL release that you can install. And what this stands for, I again, nerds are bad at naming things. If I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to guess what EPL stands for, and if you don't know, I'll tell you in a second. I'm gonna grab my stress ball for a second to just bash out. Anyway, EPL stands for Extra Packages for Enterprise Linux, right? And so Community Enterprise OS or CentOS uses this as well as Rocky Linux, which is a bug for bug copy of RHEL is how they talk about it. So we'll go ahead and install that EPL release. So a lot of times when you find that you don't have a package and you can't install it, you might still be able to get it. You just need to do like 7.5 seconds of research. And let's see if this works now. Yeah, so it pulled it from the extra packages for Enterprise Linux right there. Now we run into the part that's a little bit right? Because I only have half a gig of memory on NovNov1, and running a lot of installs and checks can sometimes lead to slowdowns, right? So I'm going to give this a couple of seconds to see if it can pick up the pace. Oh, so it was killed. Let's go ahead and try it one more time. Add the tac Y and just let it run. So it's not working in this case. And I'm pretty sure it ties back to the thing that I killed because if you guys looked it up, polkit_d is the policy framework, which could have something to do. So I'll show you guys a different command really quick. And that's just shut down, restart now, shut down right now. Got to do it as sudo. So that restarted my connection. I'm going to go ahead and give it a second. If you guys are ever wondering if that isn't enough, you can in DigitalOcean upsize your virtual machine. So CPU and RAM only, I could give it more stuff, right? So I'm not going to change this one unless it comes back to bite me again. But let's see if I can get back into my droplet and let's see how that DNF command works now. So if you guys notice, sometimes when I use sudo, I have to put in the password and other times I don't. That is because it's got like a 10-minute timer and it's by session. So if you log out, restart, or wait too long, you'll have to put your password back in, let it go. And it's still being killed. Let's see if polkit_d is even running. Oh, right, that's not how you do that. On window. Just in case polkit_d didn't restart when I killed it, I'm going to manually try and restart it. So polkit_d, the thing that I killed for fun earlier, is like I mentioned, the policy engine is what you can kind of think about. Um, so that's great. Don't kill random things. We'll get into that deeper in another video if I need to. We'll just keep moving right along to keep this video from going too far over. But that is a good example of why killing random services could be bad. Next up, I'm just gonna act like I meant to top all along, even though I like htop more. Again, top is a command that shows the top of processes or the processes that are using the most, right? So kind of like PSaux, except top takes over your whole command line and PSaux prints it out. Top also gives you this stuff up top. So next up is free, shows you how much of your disk is free. It's pretty straightforward. And then do, or disk utilization, disk usage. I can go ahead and run that at the root of the computer to get a bit more response, right? Whew, that is a lot of stuff, but it shows us how much each area is using. So again, you can specify where to look. So if I look at my disk usage of home, most of it's just in JFK and home because I don't have much else going on in there yet. But let's make something. So I want to go to, I'm just going to stay in my home directory. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to ls or list stuff. I don't have anything, right? Or do I? ls space -a lists including hidden files, and that's where you'll see your bash history, bash for C. Got a bunch of stuff in here, right? I won't poke at any of that because we learned what happens when you poke at stuff. But another way to poke at stuff is just to touch stuff. If you do touch stuff, it creates a file called stuff. Touch stuff creates stuff. What it actually does is create a timestamp for stuff. And since stuff doesn't exist, the timestamp creates the file. It's really weird to think about. But now I have a file, right? And maybe I want to put something in that file that lets me execute it as a script. So what if I were to echo, hello into stuff. So echo repeats, and then what I echoed was echo hello into stuff, kind of similar to what we did yesterday with the permit root login no for SSH. But now if I cat that file or open it up, if I do cat stuff, it says echo hello in there. And there are a bunch of ways to make something an executable, but we can just go ahead and use our next command down the permissions management side, chmod or change modify user add execute, and we can go ahead and do stuff. The color change, that's important. White is going to be a standard file, green or teal or uh, some other colors depending on operating system. Again, this is really harsh against color blindness. I don't know what I was trying to say there. But now that it's a different color, I can go ahead and run it. There are a couple different ways to run it. We could dot forward slash and just call it directly. We could bin bash home Jeff K stuff. But you'll see, however we run it, by whether calling it directly through our shell or having the program of bash, the born again shell, run it for us, it's just going to say hello. It doesn't say echo hello because when we run it, it is going to echo hello to us. So that is chmod. One use of it is if you know your user just needs to add the execute. Another way is the octal math. If he has like numbers, this is a way to set the user, group, and world permissions for a file. So 777 would be read write execute for the user, read write execute for the group, and read write execute for anyone else in the world that can access it. Alternatively, 000 would be no read, no write, no execute for the user, no read, no write, no execute for the group, and no read, no write, no execute for anyone else in the world. So if I tried that again, permission denied. But remember earlier when we were like, just sudo it. Command not found, so I can't do it that way. What about the bin bash? Falling back to that tilde or that twiddle. So we had to shorten this whole chunk right here. Permission denied. So I changed it so that nobody can do it. Let's change that back. Let's say just the owner can do whatever, and anybody in the group associated with it can read or write, which would be 4. So 0. There's a whole chart if you guys want to look this up, but 740 would be the owner or the user owner of the file can read, write, execute. The group or the group owner of the file can read and write. And then anyone else can just, oh wait, no, 40 isn't read and write. I want to pull up the octal math because I regularly forget this. We're going to use a cheat sheet from Reddit because that's always trustworthy, right? You guys trust Reddit? No, I don't want to continue on my account. So we've got, I did do that wrong. That would have just been read. And we can leave that. So directory, we don't need to worry about that for now, but read, write, and execute. So 7 would be read, write, execute. 6 would be read, write, 5 would be read and execute, 4 would be read. And so we're going to stick with the 4 of just reading. So the group can look at it, the owner can do whatever they want, but anyone else in the world can't do anything. So let's try that again, because I am the owner, so it works. So now it works because we have the permissions, but what if I chgrp? Or right now, we want to do the other one. What if I chown and we change the owner? That's what that stands for. It's an unfortunate name. And something I always get tripped up on is if you put the group name or the file name first. So we have to be root or have permission to do this because it's changing a file. And that changed the owner, but now let's change the group to wheel so that anyone with the I always forget to do sudo. This would be where editing would come in handy. So we changed our owner of root to stuff and that failed, so I sudo it. And then I immediately forgot to sudo it again, but then I remembered. So now if I do ll or long list, line list, it's like ls, but it gives us more information. That will tell me that the user owner gets read, write, execute. The group gets read, and anyone else gets nothing. So root is the owner, wheel is the group. So let's see if I can still read it. I can't. How did I typo? But I can run it with sudo using bin bash. So permissions management is a way that you can easily break stuff, just like killing things. You have to remember why and how you're running it. There's a whole video I could do on just the difference between // and then the bin bash space twiddle / stuff, but we won't get into that right now because I still got a few more commands to get through. We did look at the groups command previously. So if I do groups root, you'll see that root is just in the root group, but group Jeff K, we'll see Jeff K is in the Jeff K group and the wheel group, and the order of these might be a hint as to why the other thing we tried to do failed, but I'll leave that for those that want to dive a little bit deeper. Last but not least is stat. So if I stat stuff, it gives me the statistics of my file stuff. So in this case, it's a file. It's got a size. It's a regular file. And then it goes into the access of the permissions, showing both octal and written out. And then it even tells me when it was accessed, modified, changed, or birthed. I don't know why they didn't go with create, but it was birthed on the 11th month of the year, the third day of that month, in the year of our Lord 2025. And I'm going to kill it. So rm stuff. Gone. So that gets us down through permissions management, and then we'll get into the weird data stuff to wrap up for today. Find is how you can find files. It just searches in the directory hierarchy or the structure. And then grep uses regular expression or simple search strings to look inside of a file or readout for lines that match patterns. So you can grep something from a file after you find it in the operating system is one way to think about that. You can also grep directly, but that gets a little bit wonky, and I would recommend starting with getting familiar with find. So we can do like find home and then the user variable that is held in the system. And what this will do is it'll give me everything in home that is owned by the user that is my current user. Yeah, I could have just typed Jeff K, or I could have typed root. But it's better for me if I look at the whole structure by the variables. Sometimes I forget how to type, and if I can just remember the variable, that's a little bit easier. But that is going to be how I can find stuff. And then if I wanted to grep things inside of a file, I could either cat that file and then grep it or grep it directly. I learned how to cat first, and that's just a habit. I won't say it is better or worse than using grep directly. I just like using it this way because it makes me feel a little bit fancy. So if I were to just cat this file, it has my history in it. This is where our whole history is stored in the /home/JFK dot hidden files in Linux start with a dot bash underscore history, right? And so now what if I just wanted to look at this user's history of sudoing? There we go. We'll see I have my shutdown right now, my DNF installs that were going silly, my htop, EPOL release, last B, the times I sudo in the last video, and my firewall stuff that we did, right? So that would be a quick way to check on that. But again, what if you're needing to work with more, in which case we might need to put this into a file. So the right-facing caret is going to take the readout and redirect it to a new file, and I'm just going to call this history. So then if I stat my history, it's a regular file. It contains the information that we just put in there. It is much larger because it has that. And also my permissions are a little bit different. So it's read write for the user owner, read for the group, and read for anyone else in the world. That goes into something called the mask or the umask. That is more permissions management, but we're out of that section. We're already into weird data stuff. So we found, we grepped, we piped, and now we're going to go ahead and cat history into history 2. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is I'm going to show you guys the difference between the single right-facing caret and the double right-facing caret, because a single overwrites, whereas a double appends, right? So now I have a file called history, and if I do a cat on that and then word count lines, nice. Same with history 2, same number, right? So I can clear that out. And now what if I need to add more to that? So I'm going to take the history and then add some more stuff onto the end. Like, I don't know, just like a uname space -a for all of it. If I do a single right-facing caret and put that into history, and then a double right-facing caret and put that into history 2, and then I can do cat history, grab word count lines. That one's now only 1 line long, whereas my history 2 is now 70 lines long because the single caret overwrote it, whereas the double caret added it to the bottom. Sometimes you'll run commands and they'll fail, and you don't want the error messages. Anyone familiar with PowerShell might know error actions silently continue. In a lot of other systems, you can use this, the two right-facing caret / dev null. And what this is going to do is it's going to redirect the standard error. So not the standard output anymore. Now we're dealing with standard error. This is a shorthand for it. And then it is going to put it into / dev or device, null or a blank space. So it's just going to write it to nothing, specifically the errors. So if I were to try and find at the root of the computer things that belonged to root, root owns a lot of stuff, if you guys didn't know. But let's see if there's any errors. I didn't see any. Oh no, I had some permission denied, but that's not necessarily an error. What's a good place to error out in our system? So let's try and cat etc shadow. This is where a lot of things are stored, like password information. So in this case, if I just did the command cat space forward slash etc forward slash shadow, it'd say permission denied. But if I cat space forward slash etc forward slash shadow space to right facing caret forward slash dev forward slash null, it'll redirect that output of the error messages specifically. So if anything had succeeded, like let's say I do two files at the same time, so I cat the place that contains the user information or passwd and the place that contains the password information or shadow, it'll still print out the thing I'm asking for, right? Because I can read this, but I can't read this. So it's getting rid of that failure. Sometimes you need to look at your error messages though. So maybe you're going to do the last thing for today, which is to right facing caret twiddle or tilde forward slash error dot log. And then if I ls, I'll see I now have an error.log that if I cat that, it will show me exactly what failed. So I know we went over a ton today, and this was a much longer video than I was intending with some weird troubleshooting halfway through and some looking stuff up and talking about Linux permissions. But I would say this is my 85% accurate Linux command line basics. If you want that last 15%, you can't get it here. You have to push for that on your own. Anyone that tells you they can teach you how to be a Linux master in a YouTube video, in my opinion, is deceiving someone. We won't say who, but we will say they're deceiving someone. We'll be back tomorrow with another NovNov or Novel November project video.